On the morning of Wednesday, April 4, 2024, a call would come into emergency services in Manchester, UK. Dog walkers who had been out for a stroll in Kersal Dale, one of the city's many woodland trails, had found something gruesome: a human torso wrapped in cling film. Police and forensic investigators raced to the scene and the area was closed off, but with no way to identify the victim and no obvious clues regarding what had happened to him, or who his killer was, the police had a growing sense of dread. A murder investigation was launched, and while officers on the ground scoured every inch of the nature reserve for clues, specialist teams began the painstaking task of trying to find answers. The crime scene remained sealed off for 12 days whilst the search commenced. Meanwhile, the specialist teams were browsing hundreds of hours of footage from CCTV, frame by frame. They weren't entirely sure of what they were looking for, but soon, someone would capture their attention. The footage showed a man walking along Bury New Road in Prestwich, just 2 miles from where the torso had been discovered. The man was alone and was carrying a large blue bag that he appeared to be struggling to carry, making regular stops to rest before continuing on his journey. Police estimated that the bag weighed around 18 kilograms, which just so happened to be the exact weight of the human remains found. Officers traced the direction the man had come from and followed his journey on the CCTV. It was here that they would find something deeply unsettling. He walked in the direction of Kersal Dale before disappearing off camera. When he emerged some time later, he was still carrying the same blue bag, but this time, it was empty. The footage was grainy and the man's face was not visible, but he cut a chilling figure, calmly disposing of human remains in broad daylight. For days, investigators worked tirelessly to try and identify the man, but to no avail. He had managed to slip through the cracks, but police were in a race against time to find him. Fortunately, a chance encounter would soon give the killer an identity. On April 25, 2 officers were patrolling Winton, a suburb around 6 miles from the crime scene, when they spotted someone they recognized. It was the man from the footage that they had carefully studied. Dressed in similar clothing, possessing the same build, and walking with the same airy manner as the person in the footage, officers followed the man onto a bus and called for backup. Within minutes, officers swarmed the bus and apprehended the suspect. He was soon identified as Marcin Majurkiewicz, a 42-year-old Derby-born man with Polish immigrant parents. Marcin denied the charges against him and told officers that they had made a mistake. He was arrested on suspicion of murder and taken to the police station for questioning. With the suspect in custody, detectives were still struggling to work out who the victim was. There were no missing persons reports filed and nobody appeared to be looking for a loved one. Officers began to take a deeper look into Marcin Majurkiewicz's background, and the twisted story would soon unravel. Marcin was a 42-year-old former fast food worker who had 2 children with an estranged ex-girlfriend. For the past 5 years, Marcin had lived as a housemaid inside the home of a 67-year-old man, named Stuart Everett. The home was a modest 3-bedroom property, located on Worsley Road in Winton. Stuart was a well-liked man in his community, and although he had never been married and had no children, he had many friends. At the time of Marcin's arrest, Stuart had not been seen for over 3 weeks, but nobody reported him missing, as Marcin had taken steps to make it appear as though he was not. Marcin had used Stuart's mobile phone to message his family, and even sent birthday cards and presents to friends. Stuart's extended family members did not live in the Manchester area, so were used to not seeing him for periods of time. By pretending to be Stuart, this had bought Marcin just enough time to clean up what he had done. But not quite enough time to disappear. Officers were able to confirm that the remains found in the woodland did indeed belong to that of Stuart Everett. Now, they sealed off the home that he shared with his killer. On the surface, it appeared ordinary, however a skip sat on the driveway outside, and the interior of the home had been partially emptied. It was only when detectives peeled back the carpet in Marcin's bedroom that they would find red stains that had soaked into the floorboards. It now appeared that Stuart had been murdered and dismembered by the man he had trustingly invited into his home. But the worst was still to come. In the following weeks, further scattered remains of Stuart Everett would be discovered in various parks throughout the city. officers used the killer's mobile to track his movements via GPS data and CCTV. They would find that Marchin had traveled through various remote woodlands, parks, canals, and reservoirs. Each time, he had carried plastic bags filled with body parts. Sometimes he was walking, sometimes using public transport. A complex operation began with officers deployed to 19 locations across Greater Manchester. Remains would be found at 6 of them. But nothing would compare to what was found at Blackleach Country Park. Using sonar technology and underwater search units, divers would discover a hacksaw in the murky waters of the reservoir. Its blade still stained with Stewart's blood. Then, after days of combing the reservoir, officers recovered something almost too gruesome to believe. Stewart's skull. It was cut into 4 separate pieces. His face, which had been completely degloved, was also floating nearby. An examination would conclude that Stewart had sustained a vicious assault with a blunt object, likely a hammer. Stewart had died from multiple forceful blows to the head, followed by his dismemberment. Back at the men's home, blood splatter had also been found on the walls, on furniture, and on discarded carpet thrown into the skip outside. Manchester police also received word that in the days after the murder, Marchin had hired a white van man to assist him in taking furniture from the home to a storage unit in Bury. This included a sofa bed and fridge freezer. After retrieving this furniture, Stewart's blood would be found on both items. It is believed that the sofa bed is where Stewart's life had been taken. Police now had enough evidence to officially charge Marchin with the murder of Stewart Everett. Marchin had a deep fixation with horror and gore and even had a tattoo of the slasher serial killer character, Jason Voorhees. He had recently lost his job at the fast food restaurant where he had worked in the Trafford Centre, and had quickly amassed a debt of £73,000. On his devices, police found searches for Spanish rental properties. It is believed that Marchin had plans to flee to Spain after the murder. There was evidence that he had also attempted to sign into his victims' Universal Credit and PayPal accounts to access his money. Although a clear motive has not been established for the murder, it is believed that possible tensions had escalated between the two men. Stewart was the sole leaseholder of the property, and rising rent may have triggered a breakdown in their relationship. Already suffering deep money struggles, it is possible that this may have been Marchin's breaking point. As Marchin's trial approached, he remained largely silent and offered no explanation, nor did he show any signs of remorse. On March 28, 2025, a year after Stewart Everett's murder, Marchin Majerkiewicz was sentenced to life in prison with a minimum term of 34 years. Thanks for watching. If you want to see more videos, please like and subscribe to support the channel.